invited to speak at this listening session today. My name is Courtney Gilardi, and I live in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And like the last caller, this is my first time calling into a DPU meeting, and I'm fairly new to this issue. Sadly, I became involved with this issue because myself and my children were harmed due to wireless radiation. During the COVID shutdown, a cell tower, without our knowledge, was constructed outside our home. And the reason why we knew it was on was because one morning, my 10-year-old child came downstairs complaining of dizziness, a buzzing sensation in her head, and feeling headachy. When I went outside, I noticed that the tower had now been plugged into its EverSource, and the meter was now spinning. It had a phone number on it, and when I called Verizon, they told me that the tower had been fired up that morning. Now, I had no idea that radiation from a tower could be felt, and not just by myself and my children, but from at least 10 other neighbors who complained of AFib, heart palpitations, insomnia, headaches, skin rashes, and other issues since the tower has been on in August. Now, as a result of this massive exposure to wireless radiation, I and my children are now sensitive to wireless devices, and I can't use a cell phone or a laptop unless I'm on a hardwired connection. Prior to this, I had no issues. I didn't know I was sensitive. Now, I didn't know and I wasn't aware of how many people have been harmed by smart meters or by other sources of wireless radiation. And if you have a large house, you may be able to move your bed or sleeping area away from the meter, but if you have a small house, you may not have any choice. And as I sought to understand what was happening to me, my family, and my neighbors, people reached out to me with their stories, and I was blown away by the sheer number of people who were sensitive to wireless radiation. And as other callers this afternoon have stated, people have had to move, relocate, live in their cars, or move to other states simply to get away from these smart meters. People who have these meters in their homes have reported an increase in dizziness, in memory problems, heart palpitations, anxiety, insomnia, sleep issues. And we do know, science all points in one direction, that large amounts of radio frequency radiation cause issues, and it has adverse effects on your health. The U.S. safety limit for RF radiation is 1,000 microwatts per meter squared. However, it's not uncommon for these smart meters to produce up to 60 times this amount. Who is checking the RF levels on these meters at our houses? No one is. There is no oversight and there is no accountability. That is the equivalent to the output of 160 cell phones. And smart meters are continuously transmitting data and producing RF radiation in and around the home 24/7. There's no ability, like the previous caller stated, to put it on airplane mode, to hardwire it, or to turn it off. We don't have that option. Now, to keep my family safe, we have to move away from what we thought was our forever dream home here that we've lived in for 15 years, that my children have literally been born into a tiny house. So we now are in the process of moving into this cottage. It's a very tiny house, and the smart meter is outside the kitchen. And the only place to eat is in the kitchen. And for me, because of COVID, the girls are schooling from home, my husband's working from home, so the only place for me to be is in the kitchen. But because this meter pulses RF constantly, I can't be in the kitchen exposed to it because I get headaches and nausea and I'm dizzy. And so while I have plans to put a shielding meter around it and to line the kitchen wall with Mylar blankets and to try and do everything I can to protect myself, should I really have to do that in my own home just to feel safe? And will that even make a difference? Now, we've had building biologists and engineers come in with RF meters, and in the backyard and in other places we have a low safe green read. But next to the meter, it is red, showing how unsafe this is. And as a reminder, there are no safe levels of radiation and no studies showing that these smart meters are safe. And worse yet, they don't come with warnings on the meters letting each family know what the effects are to those who are sensitive to them. So please, I am asking you as a biologist, as a mother, as a homeowner, as a taxpayer, for each of you to please help protect my family, your family, all of our families, whether we're sensitive to this or not. We don't consent to the constant 24/7 exposure to the wireless radiation from these meters. We deserve to live in our homes and to be free from harm of this environmental toxin. We hope that you can help provide families with options so that we have options to feel safe in our homes and healthy. In our homes, we have eliminated wireless transmitters so that we can function without symptoms. But this is the one thing that we have no choice but to be exposed to if that option is being taken away. It is imperative that you as the DPU take action today. Please protect us from this involuntary exposure, and thank you for listening and taking immediate action. This simply cannot wait, and we are so grateful for your consideration and time today.
Thank you for your comments. I just wanted to know we've been getting some requests that hadn't previously signed up. We will get to all individuals that would like to speak, that even if you haven't signed up previously. At this point, we're going to move to Cecelia Doucette, and I'm going to have her raise her hand. Ms. Doucette, okay.
Hi, this is Lisa Nagy. I was asked to unmute, but I think the label says Cecelia Doucette. Should I have you look for Cece or should I speak?
Lisa, if I can go first, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, great. I guess we're both unmuted. I'll just be quiet.
Thank you, Dr. Nagy. If I could also do screen sharing, I would appreciate it.
Go ahead, you should have access now.
Been promoted as a panelist, so can you all see my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay. Oh, all right, I see it now. Thank you. Okay, now can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh. Alrighty, this should do it. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I am so grateful for the opportunity to be with you here today. My name is Cece or Cecelia Doucette, and I live in Ashland, Massachusetts. I'm a technical and professional writer by training. I am also the director of a citizen group called Massachusetts for Safe Technology. I am the education services director for a nonprofit out of Europe called Wireless Education, where we have courses built to train the public literally in a half an hour online. And I am also the outreach coordinator for the upcoming EMF Medical Conference 2021. Before I go into the rest of my slides, I thought it might be helpful, since this is an invisible toxin. Are you able to put my camera on as well? I'd like to give a demo.
You're on mute, but I think you should, if you're a panelist, I think if you've got a camera, you should be able to.
Okay, give me just a moment. This is kind of important because we're dealing with an invisible toxin, and with that, it's really kind of hard to get our heads around it. So what I thought I would do is give you a demonstration. So in my home, I, like many of the others you've heard from today, have chosen safe hardwired technology. And it's not rocket science. You just plug back into an Ethernet cable and hook your devices up and then go into settings and turn off all the antennas. And then you have perfectly safe technology. So in my home, some of the others were talking about devices going into the red around the smart meter. You'll see some movement here around green. My smart meters, or digital utility meters, are parked on the other side of my home. So here in my home office, I've done everything I can to reduce my exposures. But watch what happens when I turn my phone on. So I keep mine as a rule in airplane mode because that disables the half a dozen different antennas that are in there that are constantly pulsing radiation. So this is what happens when we're exposed to wireless radiation. And this is what the smart meters emit 24/7. And although you and I can't hear it or see it, our cells feel this day in and day out. And the exposures are cumulative. So people who don't feel electrical sensitivities today may very well be sick tomorrow. And children absorb even more radiation than you and I. So I've got just 6 other slides here that we'll go through quickly. But today's opportunity is to create a win-win. We, as the public, and as our Department of Public Utilities, want safe, effective utilities. The industry needs to do their upgrades, and there are safe ways to do technology and have a wonderful infrastructure. This link goes to this book over here. It's free and online, called Reinventing Wires, and it is the roadmap. These are experts who teach us how to get back to safe technology. And that means hardwiring, bringing the fiber optics down the road or the high-speed copper or cable all the way to the premises, and then just hardwire the smart meters right to the homes. But don't do it over the power lines because that introduces more dirty electricity. So the long-term solution is to have no radio frequency emissions or dirty electricity. And then today, the short-term solution is to have a no-fee opt-out and do everything we can to start reducing emissions for everybody, not just the people who have connected the dots and finally figured out this is what's making them so sick. So Dr. Martin Luther King, when he spoke about how do you make social change that will change an existing norm, it comes through 3 channels. 1, the public engages, and that's why we're so grateful to be here with you today. And I also wanted to say thank you for extending this session because originally it was only for 1 hour, and then you opened it up for an hour and a half. So, please accept our gratitude for that as well. So the public engages, the courts make rulings, and then public policy is enacted. So for public engagement, we have in the docket 2069, we have statements in there from legislators asking to protect the public. We have scientists, we have doctors, we have engineers, we have remediation specialists, and far too many people who have been harmed. And just today, so Ms. Lemieux from Macy indicated she was quoting from Dr. Ronald Powell, who's a Harvard-trained military physicist who was testifying down in Maryland. And 2 hours before I came into this session, I got an email directly from the largest U.S. water utility company, which is down in Maryland, and they have now indefinitely deferred their AMI project. I don't think they're going to do it because Dr. Powell and others down there testified and brought forward the science. So this just came to me today from them. So you're not alone in this conversation. They're talking about water meters, but this all applies to water, gas, electric, and of course the electric that ties into solar. So the legal actions, Pennsylvania courts just this November said you cannot force these meters on the public. Just this November in France, the courts ruled against the industry based on health reasons. And the FCC is being sued. The city of Boston filed a lawsuit because the FCC keeps passing these notions that they can just come in and give industry the right to take local control away from our towns with the cell towers and now these 5G small cell antennas that are coming in. And the FCC had an open docket to investigate what this issue is and whether or not we should change our public radiation exposure limits. The science was all brought forth and they completely disregarded it. So now the FCC is being sued by both the Environmental Health Trust, which is run by Robert F. Kennedy, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Children's Defense. And then the regulators have already sued the FCC and won because we were billed to bring safe, hardwired technology to the premises for phone services. And instead, from our phone bills, they took that money and put it in their wireless bucket and started throwing up all this wireless infrastructure that's now making us very sick. So that opens up a pathway for our municipalities to go back and recoup that funding so that we can do technology right. And then, as Ms. Beatty indicated, here in Southborough, the Fay School was sued under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And for the first time in U.S. courts, the courts recognized that, yes, there are biological effects at the non-thermal level, which means you don't have to have heat from one of these transmitting devices to have harm. So that we are having a conversation at a great point in time because all these issues are converging right now. And the third branch is public policy. So as you may know, we lead the nation with 20 bills this session, 10 of which were introduced by Ms. Beatty. And then we have 3 that are progressing even during this pandemic, even during the racial justice movement. They could have set all these to study, but they have seen enough evidence to know that we have got to get this legislation passed, including the smart meter opt-out bill. Dr. Paul Haru, I hope, is joining us today. I don't know if you guys can confirm whether you see his name in the login right now. He was scheduled to present with us, and then the time changed for the panel. He's a professor up at McGill University in Canada, and he had to record a lecture this afternoon. He was going to do his best to wrap it up in time to join us, but if not, he asked if I could cover these points for him. The groundbreaking New Hampshire law that said we have to investigate the health and environmental impacts of wireless radiation. And on November 1st, they came out with their report that says, yes, there is corruption with the government, there is corruption with the industry at the FCC and FDA levels, and they make 15 recommendations to begin educating and protecting the public right now, including using hardwire technology and moving away from wireless. In Oregon, there's an emergency law that's been passed to investigate the health and environmental impact of wireless, especially as it impacts children and especially children in schools. Their report will be out shortly, the first week in January. And Dr. Haru is planning to speak on that, but if he can't be here, I will loop back and do that. And then Dr. Lisa Nagy, who's listening in with us right now, is a medical doctor in Martha's Vineyard. She specializes in environmental medicine, and she will be speaking to us today about a resolution that she has filed with the Massachusetts Medical Society to begin addressing the wireless radiation issue. So I thank you for your time. I may be back with you if I can to talk about the New Hampshire report especially. People can find more information at Massachusetts for Safe Technology, and that's the email address. You can also go out to Wireless Education and take an online course that will teach you the science and the risks in about a half an hour. And then we encourage everybody to start thinking about getting their own doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers, plus your town's first responders, trained to recognize these microwave sicknesses. And there's actually going to be a free 1-hour seminar that some of the presenters are doing on December 3rd. It's 5 o'clock Pacific time, so 8 o'clock at night. It's just 1 hour. But if this is a new topic for you, it would be a lovely way for you to listen to a world-leading scientist and medical doctor on what this issue is. So I thank you for your time, and now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Lisa Nagy.
I'm here. Should I click something to make video, or can you hear the audio?
We can hear audio. If you can turn your video on, that would be super.
I'm having trouble figuring out, like a normal Zoom meeting, where the video on button is. Can you activate it, or the panelists feel important? Start my video. Thank you. There we go. Oh, I got my glasses on. Okay, can you hear me all right? Okay, I'll try to be brief and not repeat what other people have said. I'm a physician. I went to University of Pennsylvania undergraduate and Cornell Medical School, and I was boarded in emergency medicine after doing some general surgery and trauma, and I'm board certified in environmental medicine as well. And basically, I learned the hard way. Never really heard about this field, and have become a public speaker. And I think you guys have heard from me before at a testimony I gave in 2014. So my job, I feel, is maybe to validate the health effects of non-ionizing radiation by telling it like it is from a point of view of a clinician. I see people all the time, like yourselves, just regular people, who come in with fatigue or depression, or they say they have a musty basement. I see a lot of patients who suffer from mold exposure in schools and homes, and also chemical exposure, like pesticides, solvents, and sometimes EMF, and the two overlap dramatically. I feel that, let's see, it's very difficult, even if you have an opt-out on your own home. As somebody mentioned, you can't control neighbors' homes. So we don't really have smart meters, I'm hoping, on the vineyard yet. But if they did, I would have to sue. I'm not going to leave my home, and I certainly couldn't survive if a smart meter were here. And I put this as one of my last points, but you guys want to avoid litigation. And litigation is going to come, because I would never give into this, and neither would my patients. It's really a question of survival. And I wanted to discuss at the Massachusetts Medical Society. I've been there for 12 years, and I've written a number of resolutions, and this one is based on having the FCC reevaluate the health effects and the guidelines for acceptable limits of exposure. And of course, there's industry influence, and unless we have organizations like yours stand up and say what needs to be done and push back, we'll just nod our heads and let everybody do what they want, and then who suffers? The public. And my feeling is that women suffer from this much more than men. So the chemical sensitivity issue blends into the electrical sensitivity issue. It's in up to 30% of people sitting in a waiting room in a family practice office. Many government studies have shown how common environmental illness is, which encompasses both. And I would say that half of my patients are EMF sensitive. They don't know until they read my question list. Does the cell phone heat up in your hand? Do you not like fluorescent lighting? Do you feel uncomfortable sitting next to a big refrigerator? And do you have difficulty, let's say, holding the phone to your head? You get spaced out or have an episode. People don't realize they have it when they're young, usually. They have to age. So if you're 25 to 35 and listening to this, you may not believe it. But believe it you must, because it's going to happen to somebody in your family as they age, or yourself. And most women have sensitivities that are related to being environmentally ill that they don't realize are in this area, which is headaches from wine. So red wine giving you a headache, that's the beginning of becoming environmentally ill. Not liking perfume, having difficulty not only with electrical appliances, but other everyday activities that were okay, and something changes in your home or workplace, and you know, new carpeting, something like that. So what you think isn't a plausible problem is an extremely common problem now. And I was just on the Dr. Phil show. It has not aired yet. And they had an electrically sensitive man who was thought to be delusional and mentally ill and whatever. Dr. Phil acknowledged the environmental aspect and electrical sensitivity of this man as if it was something he knew all about. He researched it, and on national television, hopefully soon, he's going to say that he believed this man. The man came here for treatment for a couple of weeks, got somewhat better, and went home. So I am basically here to implore that you believe the people you've heard before today. And there are gazillions of them out there in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts should lead, not follow, and not be dragged around by industry, but to look at people like my